What's up everybody, my name is Louis Vuitton, and today we're going to be talking about men. Specifically, today's topic is going to center around the relationship between men and religion. In discussing these things, I'd like to share a social theory I've been developing, and the theory is this. The crisis of masculinity is directly linked to the decline in religion. So to start with, let's break that down before we get to the details. The crisis of masculinity, what is that? Well, depending on what circles you move in, you may or may not have seen various movements and individuals online proclaiming that men have forgotten how to be men, that society no longer understands what it is to be a man, that men have lost their way due to social and cultural change in the West. The idea of a man they put forward is one that harkens back to the 1950s West, the image of a clean-shaven, sharply dressed, pipe-smoking man, the sole breadwinner, the protector of both his family and property. Alongside this, women play complementary roles rather than ones perceived to be competitive, staying home, keeping the house, and caring for children. Now, if you know anything about this period of time, you know they're idolizing a fantasy that not many of the middle class achieved, but this is generally what male crisis advocates argue for. A return to this perceived idyllic lifestyle. Male crisis advocates put forth that movements like feminism and the queer community took power away from men, and as a result, eroded the identity of this stoic, unemotional male figure. In a nutshell, that's what the crisis of masculinity entails. There's plenty of information out there online, people making videos on YouTube, all clamoring for the abolishment of the beta male, and a return to a time where men were men. Now, when I say a decline in religion, I'm referring to a decline in the popularity of devout religious faith. Primarily in the 21st century, primarily in the West, and primarily concerning Christianity. Obviously, there's still Western countries founded on Judeo-Christian values that maintain a fervent religious foundation in day-to-day life, Ireland and the United States, for example. What we're seeing in all Western countries that have been founded on Judeo-Christian values is a decline in religion's popularity. And this is what I put forth to you. The crisis of masculinity felt among men and women of the West has been brought about by declining interest in faith-based Judeo-Christian values. So we have a correlation between these two social advents. How do we link it into causation? Men are experiencing this crisis because the religious ideals that were once idolized in the West are in decline, and slowly revealing the reality that men hold no power. Now, that's not to say that men don't hold power in society. What religion gave men was the illusion of power. In the great biological imperative, reproduction, beyond the first initial conception, men aren't required for anything else. Women don't need men. So now you might be thinking, well, this line of argument is dumb, because a single mother is going to have a much harder time raising a child than in a dual-income household. And you're right. But I ask you, how did we, as a society, get to the point where a single mother finds herself in that position? Don't worry, we'll get to that. So how did religion play its role in hiding the truth from society that men are powerless? Well, social structures are put in place to make women, and society as a whole, dependent on men. This is done by instilling three things in men: achievement, power, purpose. Religion implemented social conditions to give men power on a personal and larger scale. Through this, they can attain achievement and fulfill their purpose. These three concepts can be observed within toxic cultures of masculinity, industries like sport, the military, the police. Men find or are given their place in society within one of these cultures, and religion is one of them. And it's by analysing these three concepts of achievement, power, and purpose that we'll explore why the decline in religious belief has brought about the crisis of masculinity. After the Industrial Revolution, religion endeavoured to cement the idea of the white heteropatriarchal family within society. There was a need to keep women at home to care for children, because now the majority of paid work was taken out of the home and conducted in factories. If both men and women went out to work, then who was at home to look after the kids? Disregarding child labour. So factory owners and businessmen lobbied to have the laws changed, making it illegal for women to work or to own property. Women became completely dependent on their husbands and fathers. These social changes whittled the family unit down until it culminated in what we call the nuclear family, and this was the achievement of men. You'd think that religion's emphasis on women's roles as mothers would weaken a man's place within the family unit, right? Wrong. It didn't matter that men played no part in the raising of children. They were already seated at the head of the table, masters in their own house. How was this done? How did men achieve this position? Or with religion's aid. Religion, regardless of doctrine, contends that God is the supreme authority in the universe. And what do we call God? The Lord, King, Master, Top Dog, Big Boss, Head Honcho, sometimes all of these and more, but most commonly, Father. Religion gave men their place in society through the analogy of the family, with God at its head. Religion tells us that God is our Father, we are His children, and that we, life, and everything in it was created by Him. A direct subversion on the reality that men are incapable of creation. Right out of the gate, Genesis tells us that God made men in His image. Christian fundamentalists construe this to mean that women were made in man's image, because after all, was Eve not created from Adam's rib? Notice the irony men demonstrate through their frustration over their inability to create life. So you remember when I said earlier that it's men's detachment from childbearing that gives men power? Well, God at the head of the family is a blank slate given to men to project themselves onto. When a man raises a family, he is playing God. God is identified as the head of the family and given absolute authority. This sense of authority ripples out through society and engenders a sensation in men as they assume positions as fathers. In turn, women and children are instilled with deference towards male authority through the idolization of the Heavenly Father. The pervasive aspect of religion cannot be understated. No other culture of masculinity is as pervasive as religion. Religion seeks to give men achievement, a sense of satisfaction that they are useful. Other cultures of masculinity provide this achievement too. They are created by men, acted between men, to be consumed by men. Religion differs from these, however, in that religion was created by men, is acted between men to be consumed not just by men, but all of society. Religion dictates what a man is, not just to men, but to women too. Women are told to honour and respect their husband's authority. Deference for male authority is engendered in the public, particularly women, through the analogy of the father at the head of the family. To go against this construct, to challenge it, meant eternal damnation and torture in hell. And thus, the crisis of masculinity. Men have lost their sense of achievement. It can no longer be obtained because the social structures that gave men power have been challenged, starting in the last century and leading up to today. The power religion gave men is the next aspect that we'll take a look at. The cultures of masculinity present in Western society exist to perpetuate climates of power where men can exercise control. The police, for instance, is an industry designed to be an outlet for men to receive power and exert control. When a police officer beats another man while lying on top of him, it's not about law enforcement or submission, it's about control. One element I touched on earlier, which I'll get more into now, is the concept of family as a social structure. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, Western communities were much more tight-knit. The majority of the country's population didn't live in cities and urban areas like they do now. So, after the Industrial Revolution, the family structure changed. Focus was more and more centered on the immediate family, giving men more power in the process. Extended family were less involved, meaning there were fewer men to compete for dominance within the family. This culminates in the idyllic 50s family caricature, where the only other adult the man is to contend with is his wife, which, as we've been saying this whole time, was socially and economically enslaved to her husband. So, when I said earlier that men's participation in the process of raising children is not required, this was correct. As a biological concept. As a social reality? Not good fucking luck. Western society has married itself to the concept of the nuclear family, centralizing it in our lives. Now, it should be noted this is not an endorsement of absentee fathers. Children benefit from two adults. But even more so, they benefit exponentially when they're raised by a community. The West needs to break the social mold and stop raising kids in this seemingly unique manner. Emulate family structures like those of Indigenous Australian families, Mediterranean families, Arabic, African, Native American. It takes a community to raise a child, and by breaking down this hyper-centralized family unit, it will take power away from men and spread it among the family. Children can only benefit from this approach. But, of course, religion doesn't like this idea. Power and control are fundamental elements of religion. The Institute demonstrates a sickening proclivity towards the domination of women's sexuality. Women had to be made dependent on men. Their sexuality had to be shackled to men's desire. This control by men over women can also be observed in the ways in which religion influenced Western society. In particular, how it endeavoured to regulate women's sexuality. Fathers give away their daughter on her wedding day, and women have to be virgin brides. Control is relinquished from one man to another in this symbolic gesture. So why the emphasis on virginity? Well, it's simple. Control. Fathers offer up their virgin daughters on their wedding day. Nuns are the virgin brides of Christ. Virginity is a form of jealous control. Men are consumed of insecurity by the thought that a woman has been touched by another man. Have you ever thought about why Mary was a virgin? What does it contribute to the myth? Well, a Christian would probably tell you some BS about how it was the miracle of the angel, or the glory of God. Crap. The truth is that God didn't want to get up in a woman who wasn't a virgin. He didn't want to share. And remember, God is for men to project themselves onto. Religion rewards men with sex when they work both within this culture and work to uphold it. The Bible gives men the authority to rape their wife as they see fit. So in addition to fulfilling the three ideals of masculine culture, achievement, power and purpose, religion creates an easy way for men to fulfill that incapable drive to reproduce. I hope you've realised where I'm going with this point. I wish it had greater social implications, and I could dress it up in pomp and verbosity, but one undeniable aspect expressed by male crisis advocates is frustration over the ease at which a man can no longer get his dick wet. Throw a dart at an online incel forum, you're bound to hit somebody that holds traditional views on family. The crisis of masculinity is a response to men's frustration that they no longer have the power structure needed for them to reach their achievement. Because they cannot meet this goal, they can no longer fulfill their purpose. A common phrase you'll hear from masculinity advocates and traditional family fundamentalists is men have lost their way. The idea of what a man is no longer conforms to the rigid standard of attributes ascribed to men throughout the 19th and 20th century. In these communities, criticism is frequently focused on men perceived to be weaker, beta, or sissies. Various movements are blamed for bringing about a society that has allowed men to become this way. One community that holds a fundamentalist view on masculinity is MGTOW, men going their own way. The movement asserts that men have forgotten how to be men. Well, that's a pretty libertarian sounding name. It's strange that they share similar beliefs on how people need to identify. So to get us started exploring purpose, I'll be discussing identity, specifically how men are reacting to the loss of this, and I want to take a look at MGTOW as an example of one of the crisis' subsets and its members' reactions. Oh my god, I'm already cringing super hard. That fucking website, man. It opens on a black banner and then in grey, there's been an awakening. Fades in. Alright, what are they about? MGTOW, men going their own way, is a statement where, hold on, I'm not giving this description the proper deference it deserves.
MGTOW, men going their own way, is a statement of self-ownership.
Good so far, individuality, hey, I like it.
Where the modern man preserves and protects his sovereignty above all else.
What the fuck does that even mean? Okay, so I'm taking sovereignty to mean independence? Well, if that's the case, then you lot have no business in telling femboys how to live.
It is the manifestation of one word. No.
Alright, come on. I'm not giving them their fair shake.
Ejecting silly preconceptions and cultural definitions of what a man is.
Ejecting? This is funny, coming from a movement that wants society and culture to return to a time where men were beyond reproach.
Looking to no one else for social cues.
That makes no literal sense! You can't take a social cue from no one. It's an oxymoron. If there's no one else involved, then it's not social.
Refusing to bow, serve, and kneel for the opportunity to be treated like a disposable utility.
This is what I want to take away from the movement, so we'll come back to that, but let's see how it wraps up.
And living according to his own best interests in a world which would rather he didn't. In other words, common sense for men.
One ticket to Joker, please. Like I said, what I want to focus on is the emphasis on disposability. It's rife amongst MGTOW talking points. Society treats men as disposable. Women treat men as disposable commodity. Women only want to use men. Women trick men to marriage or pregnancy. Now, these ideas are not unique to MGTOW. Disposability is an issue that many male crisis advocates bring up. One thing to note is that in this instance, they're not wrong. Men are treated as the disposable sex. Men are more likely to occupy positions in dangerous industries, and as a result, are more likely to become crippled or killed in industrial accident. Men are more likely to be killed in military combat, as more men make up the front lines. Not only do men conduct the majority of crime, so a man is more often the perpetrator of a violent crime, but men are more frequently the victims of violent crime. All of these aspects of our society are valid causes for concern. However, I'm afraid I have some bad news for the male crisis advocates out there. Men have always been the disposable sex. It's true. Think of it like this. If the country's population was reduced to 100 people, 99 women and 1 man would have a far easier task of repopulation than 99 men and 1 woman would. So why is this only now a problem for male crisis advocates? If men have always been the disposable sex, and they want society to return to a time where men were exclusively disposable, what's changed? Ideas? Well, come on, obviously tonight's topic. Religion. Religious belief dips, concern for men's disposability goes up. Why? Because for centuries, religion gave men their identity. It taught them how to be a man. A point which I'm almost belaboring at this stage. So let's get to the crux of what religion did for men in disguising their disposability. Religion gave the concept of God to men for them to assume positions of power in society, particularly within the family. God gives men authority. God provides men with a sense of achievement and justifies power. Herein lies the greatest lie religion told men. Men are given God as a template, told this is what they are deserving of and what they will become. But it's not God men grow up to be. It's Jesus. Men's disposability is orchestrated through reverence towards the Son of God. Why is this important? Because it preps men for suicide. Now, I don't mean literal suicide, but the myth of Jesus grooms men, making them susceptible towards male authority. God, male authority, sent his only son, men, to earth, to die on the cross for us. Male authority dictates men's disposability throughout the cultures of masculinity found in Western society. When a football player plays on because he's told to, even though he's injured. When a police officer beats another man at the cost of his own humanity because he knows authority doesn't tolerate being soft on crime. When a soldier is shot and killed because a general orders his unit to take a hill, no matter how scared he is. All of this death and suffering is brought about by men's unwavering trust in male authority. Men are waking up to their disposability because they're no longer afforded the safety blanket of God or the comforting lie of Jesus. Men have finally been confronted with their own mortality, and it terrifies them. For the first time in modern history, men are learning what day-to-day life is like for women, racial minorities, queer communities, and everyone else who doesn't conform to the white, heteropatriarchal archetype of the West that religion helped to engineer and continues to prop up to this day. The crisis of masculinity isn't about respect for what a man is or was, it's about fear! Men across the world are feeling the stranglehold of their power slip. The ways in which cultures of masculinity provide them a purpose have been challenged, and, as a result, they no longer feel needed. Men have become aware of their mortality, though not for the right reasons, and are desperate to recapture their purpose. A purpose that demands they offer their lives in one of our many death cults. A purpose that too many men are only too happy to fulfill willingly. This is the crisis of masculinity, and it is felt because more people of each generation are going along with the crowd and drinking the Kool-Aid of religion. At some point during this video, you might have wondered what caused the decline in religion. Well, in the last 70 years, there's been monumental social change, but I contend there's one thing in particular that's driven religion into a decline. The F word. I'm gonna say it. Feminism. Religion's greatest threat is feminism, and vice versa. I put forth that religion is in direct opposition to feminism because the movement seeks to empower women. As women become more empowered, they rely less on men, weakening the role of a man within the family unit. Masculinity is threatened as women take on positions held by men. Men lose their sense of purpose and are unable to achieve power, as there will always be one role held by women that men cannot occupy, the giver of life. Religion seeks to give men power, or at least the illusion of such, by instilling purpose in men. Now that society is no longer dictated by the doctrine of religion, at least not overtly, men no longer feel useful, and the crisis of masculinity is the result. I'm probably vastly underestimating just how entrenched in the West religious dogma truly is. But hey, a lot less people going to church every Sunday, even among committed believers, and that's a win. So any male crisis advocates in the audience, what is it you want? Are you one of those falling over each other to die in the suicide-packed death cult that is the military? Or are you of the mindset of MGTOW, the movement that would be more aptly named, Men Need to Go Our Way? Permit me to offer you some advice, and don't listen to anyone. Do what makes you happy. Don't let anyone tell you how you're supposed to live your life as a man. Be the man that you want to be, not what society or culture wants of you. Reject historic conceptions of masculinity. Reject contemporary conceptions of masculinity. Be your own individual. And yes, I'm aware of the presence of the irony in that suggestion. I know it's coming, so let me get out ahead of the criticism that will be made in the attempt to destroy the entirety of my theory. The inevitable comment of, okay, so maybe other than initial conception, women don't need men for anything. But they still need men and our sperm for that first step. And you'd be right. For now. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you found anything I said interesting, please consider subscribing. The channel's only just getting started, but I have a lot of ideas kicking about to get all of you thinking. Follow me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Links down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, fuck you. But now, give it a thumbs down. But hey, leave a comment and tell me why. I'm Louis Vuitton. Thanks again for watching, and I will see all of you very soon with a new video.